888 Freedom.
Half the cost savings based on cost of consumer cellular single-line 5GB data plan with unlimited talk and text compared to lowest cost single-line postpaid unlimited talk, text, and data plan offered by T-Mobile and Verizon May 2023.
Make a New Year's resolution that's easy to keep. Help protect your identity and finances with LifeLock Identity Theft Protection. LifeLock detects identity threats you may miss on your own, and if you become a victim, LifeLock will work to fix it. LifeLock is the New Year's resolution that's easy to keep. Save up to 25% off your first year. Call 1-800-LIFELOCK or go to lifelock.com. Use promo code RYAN, R-Y-A-N, to save up to 25%. That's lifelock.com.
Arizona's GOP chair steps down following a leaked recording.
Arizona Republican Party Chair Jeff DeWitt resigns after what he calls a selectively edited audio recording of a private conversation between him and GOP Senate candidate Carrie Lake, in which he seems to offer her a financial incentive to stay out of the race.
Is there a number at which
I can be bought?
not be bought?
That's what it's about.
You can take a pause for a couple years.
No.
And then go right back to what you're doing.
No.
DeWitt says, contrary to accusations of bribery, my discussions were transparent and intended to offer perspective, claiming her team gave him an ultimatum, resign or face the release of a new, more damaging recording. Lake's campaign says no one threatened or blackmailed him. Kristen Goodwin, Fox News.
Some big companies are cutting jobs while others are staffing up.
The job market continues to defy traditional trends, with eBay eliminating 1,000 jobs, but Chipotle Mexican Grill hiring 19,000. eBay says it overhired, and now overall headcount and expenses have outpaced growth. It's a different story at Chipotle Mexican Grill, which is hiring 19,000 new full and part-time employees for what it calls burrito season, its busy period from March to May. Chipotle is offering more health benefits, a new retirement plan that also helps employees pay off student loans, and access to a debit card that will help employees build credit. Ginny Cosola, Fox News.
A science-oriented advocacy group says for the second year in a row, Earth is nearing apocalypse, pointing to its famous doomsday clock. The Bulletin of Atomic Scientists cited nuclear threat in Russia's war on Ukraine, as well as the October 7th attack in Israel, worsening climate-related disasters, and the danger of generative artificial intelligence. I'm Lisa Lacera. This is Fox News.
Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you one more time to sit in with us, the Lawrence County Republican Radio Show. My name is Brandon Taylor, and I'm the chairman of the Lawrence County Republican Party. Sitting across the table from me is my good friend, Mr. Lawrence Sutton. He's the secretary of the Lawrence County Republican Party, and we like to bring in special guests. We have Mr. Dick McKinley. He is the city administrator of the great city of Lawrenceburg. Welcome, gentlemen. How are you doing this evening?
Doing good, buddy. How about you?
All right, good.
Long time no see, right?
Yeah, haven't seen you since last evening. Got several things I want to talk about. Of course, I think before we get rolling, I want to thank everyone for coming out to our meeting last night. We had a great turnout at the Lawrence County Courthouse. If you were able to be there, I so much appreciate your attendance. The Lawrence County Republican Party is strong, and I think that was pretty evident last night. What do you think, Lawrence?
I absolutely think, and it was nice having. We got seven candidates running for the school board, and all seven of them are Republican.
Absolutely, and there are no independents and there are no Democrats running for school board in this election cycle, and I'm excited about it. I was going to go down the list real quick, and then we're going to get to you, Dick. We're glad you're here with us. We're not ignoring you. We want you to be jumping in. But I have had a couple people actually texting me, asking me about last night, and I've realized after we got going, we didn't video it. We didn't stream it. We should have, and I regret it.
Got to be in to win.
You must be present to win.
Must be present to win. That's right.
And we do. We want people to actually show up. We're really not interested in someone actually being remote membership. We want you to be present. We want you to come out and join us. So District 1, District 4, and District 7, District 8 also is going to be up for election this cycle. And so in District 1, we have Mr. Bill Adams is running, and Rebecca Taylor, my wife, actually. And then District 4, we have Jerry Dryden. And in District 7, we have Janet Alexander and Keith James Sr. In District 8, we have Kevin Caruso and Chad Shannon. And I want to thank all those individuals for being willing to stand up, address the Republican Party last night. And it's a good string of candidates. You know, we talk too much about hold our nose and vote. I don't feel that this time. It's not a hold your nose and vote scenario.
Right. I absolutely agree with that. We had some people come out. They are concerned with what's happening in our schools.
Yep.
They're concerned about the children, and as long as we put the children first, and we're not using the children as political pawns,
Yep.
then you know what? I feel very confident that we will have a very good school board coming up at the end of this election cycle.
What I saw was I didn't see a group of people that were pushing an agenda. I saw a group of people that were getting involved from a deep-rooted conviction. That's what I saw. That's what I witnessed, and from all the candidates. And I believe all of them are very similar in conservative values and the way they would vote. It may just come down to personality, which that's okay. It's kind of neat to see it. A race ran this way. So I'm just very thankful. We also, I don't want to fail to mention, but Brady Hutton is also up for re-election this year. He is the assessor of property. He is the only one running for assessor of property, as a Republican candidate as well, and a friend and a good guy.
Yeah, he is a good
and so hopefully he'll be with us at our next meeting. I talked to him last night, and I'd like to have him speak. Hopefully we'll have him there at our February meeting. Early voting is going to start on February 14th through the 27th, and the primary is going to be on March 5th. So look forward to seeing people get out there and vote. This election for Lawrence County is going to be decided during the primary.
And it's going to be very quick. I mean, it's almost on us. I mean,
it's going to be one more snowstorm and we'll be there, right?
That's right. Yeah, they can leave the snowstorm out.
And listen, I want to say thanks to a couple of folks that are actually sponsoring this show. Chris Stutz, Farm Service Solutions, good friend, great guy. If you need anything for your property, whether it be farming or perhaps you have land, maybe you do land management, you hunt, you fish, go see Chris Stutz. They got everything from pasture drags. I was looking online. They've got augers. They've got things that you might need for pond management. If he doesn't have it, you probably don't need it. He's at 41 Williams Road in Leoma, Tennessee. His phone number is 931-242-7675. They're open 6 days a week. They close on Sunday because he is a good, God-fearing family man, and they're going to be with family on Sundays. So remember the good old days when things used to close down on Sundays?
Yeah, I do remember that. I mean, I remember that a lot, and I'd like to see it go back to that way.
I'm thrilled to see it. So if you want to do business with someone local, someone who cares, and the more people I talk to, they talk about how they've been buying things from Chris Stutz for years, and so it's great. And I want to mention our good friend Travis Caldwell, because he's working there hard every day out there trudging through the woods looking for your next piece of property.
Bigfoot, baby.
Bigfoot. He's on it. United Country Real Estate, Southern Tennessee Realty. You can look them up, look at their properties on southerntennesseerealty.com. Call Travis at 931-629-3033. I just talked to him just before the show. I said, hey, Travis, you got anything good that people might be interested in? He said, man, I have got almost 1,000 acres in Wayne County. It's got a 20-acre pond. It's got over a couple of miles of roads, apparently. It's farmland, woods. He said it's a sportsman's paradise. He'd love for somebody to come out and take a look at that. I thought, well, if Lawrence would buy it, Dick, if I could get Lawrence to buy it, then I could just go use it. That'd be even better than me on it. What do you think, Dick?
That sounds like a plan.
Okay, would you come out and hunt and fish with me as well?
Certainly would.
Well, Dick, we want to say welcome to you. And you haven't been on the show before, but we're glad you're here this evening. And tell us a little bit about how Dick McKinley ended up in the good land of Lawrence County.
So I grew up in Michigan. I lived on the West Coast for a long time, and we were eager to come to this area. My mom lives south of Huntsville. She lives about halfway between Gunnersville and Scottsboro.
Right.
My younger brother lives in New Hope, Alabama. My son-in-law is an electronics engineer, works for one of the consulting companies that works at Redstone Arsenal.
Okay.
So he's a super smart guy. But son-in-law, daughter, 4 grandkids. My 4 youngest grandkids live in Madison. They're about an hour away. Mm-hmm. So we were looking for somewhere in this area to get out of the West Coast. And so we found Lawrenceburg and pursued it. We were very interested. It's a very nice place to be. The thing I think I like the most in very short version is it's openly religious, openly patriotic.
Yes.
You do not see that everywhere. That's not common. And so we love it here. It's a family place. People, parents and kids respect each other, the roles, and The schools seem good, so we're happy to be here.
I agree. It is openly religious and openly patriotic,
Yeah.
and I agree with that statement 1,000%.
Yeah.
One of the things that I noticed when I moved into Lawrence County, which I grew up in Lewis County, but people might think I'm an outsider, but look, I mean, I've got a 01 F-150 in my driveway with a Steve Williams Ford sticker on it. So you've been around for a minute if you know what Steve Williams Ford is. A dealership used to be in this county, and we, as a child, we would buy cars at Lawrenceburg. Lawrenceburg was known for having some car dealerships, and so a lot of people would come to Lawrenceburg and buy cars. But I noticed that whenever my wife Rebecca and I were talking about moving, and we wanted to get further out from some congestion, we were living in a more urban setting, and we wanted to get out to a farm setting. But we went to Lawrenceburg looking around, and I noticed one of the first things I noticed was we were looking at property. We stopped in a restaurant in town, and I saw like the grandparents, and then their adult children, and then you saw the grandchildren sitting at restaurants. And I noticed it, we'd come down a couple times, and I started noticing that. And I'd lived in Spring Hill for years, and no one's originally from Spring Hill. It's a population of 50 people, 25 years ago. So I noticed that here, and I agree. That's one of the things that really drew me in was the fact you see generational families functioning in churches and sports events and things like that. So I agree.
Well,
with
you
that.
came from that same type of area in Hohenwald, though.
Yeah, and it felt more like where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
I lived in Spring. Nothing against Spring Hill. It's a beautiful town. Lived there, worked there, was there for years, but no one was originally from Spring Hill.
Right.
You drive down the road, and it would be they were from all different states, and people didn't connect that well. They didn't know each other, and they kind of had their own thing. They did their own cliquish thing, and in Lawrence County, maybe it's cliquish again, in certain ways. But you see families, and you go to Walmart, and folks, and I don't know. I just enjoy shopping here. I enjoy eating here. I enjoy living in this community. So that's what drew you in was the fact that we were family oriented, God fearing, and patriotic.
Yeah, and a great place. I'm the city administrator. And so I get to have my hands in all kinds of things to help make the community good, help it be better, and lots of good work to do.
Well, let me ask you this question, because I don't know. What does the city administrator do on a daily basis for Lawrenceburg?
So the city administrator.
I might be interested in this job. No, I'm just kidding.
It's not a bad gig. So when people ask what I do, I cause things to happen, right? So I'm in charge of all of the staff.
Okay.
I work for the mayor and the council, and I'm in charge of all of the staff. So my day-to-day job is making everything run well, overseeing all the department heads, putting the budget together, managing the money, managing grants, and projects and things to help keep moving things along, help keeping things be better. Right?
Okay.
So,
Kind of like a COO of a company.
Yeah.
something like that, yeah. And, the key is how do you help Lawrenceburg improve in the areas they need to, like helping the square be better and a place for people to go, but not losing the things that make Lawrenceburg, right?
Yes.
How do you help make sure, so like when we're working on economic development, it's really important, but it's how our children and our grandchildren are able to grow up and stay here.
Okay.
It's how you're able to have 5th and 6th generation families here is your kids don't have to leave to go get a job.
Yeah, and back in the 40s, that happened a lot in Lawrenceburg because you either went to Michigan for cars or you went down to Florida for, fruit, oranges, and things like that. And my family originates out of here, but my grandparents moved to Florida when my dad was like 2 or 3 months old. And then my dad decided when he was retiring, he's like, I'm moving back to Lawrenceburg where I came from. And I remember asking my dad this question because we came from a little town in Polk County called Auburndale, is where I grew up at originally. And I remember asking my dad about this. I'm like, why did you move here? And he's like, well, boy, he says, we don't get a traffic jam unless you get behind an Amish buggy. And he says, the people up here, he says, they're my people, but he says it's like how Auburndale used to be like in the 50s. Yeah. And I remember, like, I wasn't born until 72, so I don't know what Auburndale was like in the
Right,
50s.
right.
But then when I started coming up here, and I'm like, okay, I see why my parents moved up here.
Right.
And see, Tennessee figured out, instead of losing good people to a state of Michigan, why not take the jobs from Michigan and relocate them to Tennessee?
Right.
Well,
That's right.
once those other states started the Democratic process, the Democrat-loved state income tax, you saw a lot of businesses fleeing those states.
Sure.
And so, one of the first things when people start talking about, we need a state income tax, I have two statements I always say on that. Number one, name a state that has a state income tax that's doing better than Tennessee, because we don't have one, and we have a zero balanced budget every year. Most of those are in debt. They didn't improve the quality of life. Okay, and then number two, explain to me how you're going to maintain the fact that businesses are moving here because we don't have an income tax and they want to be here and it's drawing industry here. So the things that are great about this state are really threatened by people with ideology that they don't behold to the conservative viewpoints that have kept this state to be what it is and, as you said, maintained for generations to come.
Right, and that's a key part. If you're going to come here like me and have a job here, then you got to understand what helps Lawrenceburg be Lawrenceburg, and don't try to turn Lawrenceburg into somewhere else.
Amen on that one. That was one of the things in Florida, being in Florida, we'd have people move from up north all the time, and first thing they do is they'll say, well, that's not how we did it up there. And we'd look at them and say, take your butt back up there. We like Florida for what it is,
Yeah.
And Florida has suffered a lot of change, and it's changed a lot.
It has. It has. I mean, if you look at the county I came from, Polk County, it's very similar to Lawrence County, actually.
Yeah.
And so, very rural and farming, and so, I wasn't in Miami or Orlando or Tampa by any means.
So you have history in government, Dick? As far as history?
So I started working for a city in 1982, so 40-ish years.
Okay.
Way before you guys were even really born.
I appreciate that, but it's not true.
So I've been doing this for about 40 years. I've worked at 8 different cities in 5 different states. So that's been actually very helpful because I get to see different ways of doing things and, the goods and the bads.
Sure.
Right. And so, there's a lot of different ways to do stuff, but it's good. We have a really great community here. We have some things that are different. So, for example, and it's very helpful in economic development, for example, but the city and the county and the school systems all get together. They all like each other. We all work together every day. That's not common. You go a lot of different places in the country.
That's not even common in Tennessee,
and
actually.
the cities and counties are at war with each other.
Right.
That's not very helpful, right?
No, it's not.
And so
it's counterproductive.
But we're able to do a lot of good things here at the, if you look at Lawrence County High School, there's a lot of improvements to the fields, and with Bobby Brewer Park there, we do things for each other with the school district and the city and the counties all the time. Mm-hmm. We work together, not against each other. That's huge.
Sure. Well, so one of the reasons that I'd ask you to come in, and I'm glad you did, and so I'd actually contact the mayor's office and talk with them and about a concern that had been brought to my attention and to Lawrence's attention is we are involved in different types of circles of people in politics, and so the concern was in a newspaper article, and it was discussing the fact that we're going to have some cameras that are going to be placed in the city. And so when I called you, you were more than willing to give me information about that. And on the surface, I'm going to tell you, my knee-jerk reaction is I don't like this, and I may not like it even after we finish the conversation. But I wanted to get the facts, and I felt like you would come in and just really clear the air. It was just a small article in the newspaper, and it actually just mentioned the cameras. It didn't go in detail. So we would like to just pick your brain for a few minutes. You seem like a very intelligent man, and you love this community. So those are two things that are always a plus when you come in here. At least you're intelligent. Lawrence and I, we're just kind of mediocre when it comes to the IQ quotient. But what are the cameras, and what are we looking at with this program?
So this particular program is really a state program, and so it's oriented to the state highways as they come through town. It's a license plate reader camera.
Okay.
So it doesn't have anything to do with the driver. It doesn't look at faces in the cars. It doesn't anything. It looks at license plates. It's used in a lot of places to help for serious crimes, murders, car theft, bank robberies, and things like that. And what happens is then a police agency can say, we just had a bank robbery and this license plate was the getaway car. And then when that license plate drives through Columbia, let's say, and one of the license plate reader cameras sees the license plate, then it triggers into the system. We just saw this car make a right-hand turn here. you
Okay.
know? And it's a good investigative tool to help follow up on crimes and things like that. It's it keeps the information for a month in the system. We don't get the information unless we want to. If we're tracking down a crime, then we can go there and see.
Lawrenceburg Police Department.
Yeah, the Lawrenceburg Police Department can then go in and see, has that car had a hit in Memphis or Florida or wherever.
Okay.
To help investigate, to find the people who did the crimes. And then if nothing, then it goes every 30 days. Then it just wipes out the data because there'd be no reason to have it, right?
Okay, so there's a couple. That's going to lead me to a couple of other questions. One of those questions, and we'll just take them one at a time. So, you mentioned Columbia. So, is this program already in other cities like Columbia or surrounding cities?
It's in lots of places. I can't sit here right now. I just use Columbia as an example. I
Okay,
can't
okay.
tell you right now whether Columbia does or
Sure.
doesn't. But that would be the idea of how it would work, right?
I know they're in Memphis and I know they're
Sure.
in Nashville.
Oh, shit.
And
Yeah.
and here's the crazy part is those are some of the worst crime-ridden towns in this state, but yet they have the cameras.
So all of law enforcement, all of crimes is a whole bunch of different tools.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
So you got radar guns for traffic enforcement. You've got all different kinds of things. We have speed limit signs. We have crosswalks, all kinds of things. This is
Right.
just a tool. It's not the be all end all. It's not. It's a tool.
So it's not let me be clear on this. So it's not a traffic control device that would be monitoring if you ran a red light or if you turn right on red and you shouldn't have or something like that. It's not going to
Absolutely
send you an auto ticket through the mail.
It is not that. They have those cameras in different places in the country, like
Right.
running a red light and stuff like that. This is
And
not
I hate
that.
them, so I'm just going to
This
tell
is
you.
not that.
Right.
Right.
So I'm going to go down a couple of rabbit holes. One of those is, of course, I think before I get to that one, I want to know, where did the financing come from that actually funded this program for Lawrenceburg?
So it's a state program, and so we would be just part of the state program, but it's a state-funded program.
Okay, so none of the local taxpayers, it was a state tax. When you say state funded, is this a grant that came in, or?
So I think the state actually runs the program as opposed to granting and us doing it, right?
Well, according to the newspaper article, it said that it was going to be tracked nationally, though.
So the Tennessee part is part of a national program.
Okay. And who is the company?
I don't know.
And we
I can find out, but
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, and in all fairness, I'll say this to everyone. I mean, Dick, when you came in here even before we went on air, you said you're welcome to ask me any question tonight. And you know what? I appreciate that. You didn't put up any fences on this. You said, hey, let's talk about it. And we told you, we want to do this raw. This is not a rehearsed interview, okay?
Right.
We didn't go over any questions with you beforehand. You just came on in, but the point of you coming in was because these cameras are going to be installed. And I think so let's talk about a couple reasons why people might be apprehensive. And I'm apprehensive. Somebody might hit the radio and say, I'm more than just apprehensive, okay? But let's just talk about the reason why they would not feel comfortable with this. Yeah, I think number one is one of the questions I'm always going to have is, how is this program going to benefit the local citizens, okay, that's going in here? And then number two is this is going into a national data bank. This is information that's going out there, and we see China, we see all kinds of breakdowns with information that's going out there. Who's controlling this information, and why do they need it? And they talk about car theft. I get that one. And I didn't pull the numbers to see how many car thefts we have in Lawrenceburg per year, city of Lawrence County or Lawrence County or Lawrenceburg. I didn't pull that information. Do you have that information on how many car thefts
I
we
didn't bring a lot of
experiencing?
stats with me.
Okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, it's fair enough. So they just approached the city of Lawrenceburg and said, hey, we would like to put some cameras at the corners, and they come in and they install these cameras. Is that how this
They
is
do
working?
or we do, right? Because that's a detail, right? Who actually puts the camera up and stuff
Right,
like
and
that.
who's the company? Because, there are some companies out there that are doing this. What little research I've done that has China implications to them.
Yeah, so this is you guys are going to make me look at my notes, right?
Well, that's when we know
So,
we're
and-
doing a good job.
And for whatever it's worth, if at the end of the day you don't agree, I love it. It's America.
That's
We're
right.
not. We don't all have to agree.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So it doesn't go to the Department of Safety. It's so permit is issued through the Tennessee Department of Safety.
Okay.
So that to be able to have these cameras, they're installed on state-owned rights-of-way. So
Okay.
we have a couple
Highway
of main,
43, Highway 64.
So yeah, you got 43, you got 64, you got 242 Buffalo Road.
Okay.
Those would be the highways that could be
Sure.
right. It doesn't look at it doesn't go back to the database because none of it is about finding the driver of the car. That it's about finding the car, where did it go, as an investigation tool. So when our detectives are following up on a crime, and they go and say, hey, we're looking for this license plate, that goes in the system, and then if that license plate dings somewhere in the system, then they say, okay, we just had a hit in Tullahoma,
Okay.
right? So I'm sorry.
So do we
I
have
don't
any
have all this
cameras in
memorized.
Lawrenceburg? Are we going to see
We
any
don't.
cameras?
We're trying to get cameras. We're trying to be part of the state program to get cameras. If we get them, they'll be installed about June.
Will we get money from the state after we install these? Or I'm trying to figure out what the carrot on the stick is to make us want to do this
The
program.
carrot on the stick is having law enforcement agencies that work together, that share information,
Sure.
and not just be an island, right? We get a lot out of working with other agencies, and therefore they get help from working with us.
Are there any cameras in Lawrenceburg or in Lawrence County that you know of now or are going to be that do facial recognition?
There's none that I know of that do facial recognition, and we don't plan to have any.
Okay.
Right. That's a very different technology, and we're not trying to find people, right? We're just vehicles that are used in bad crimes. That's part of finding the perpetrator of the crime.
And I understand that, there's even, and I use the Tennessee.gov website, Safeway, I think it's called Safeway Travels, but you can actually go online and you can actually see cars driving up and down the interstates right now. I mean, you
Right,
can
'cause
look at it in real time, and
they
I've
have
done that.
cameras. Mhm.
They have cameras. If you get on any interstate, you're on camera. And so I'm on the interstates quite a bit. I mean, just yesterday I was from Nashville to Jackson, back to Nashville, and back to Lawrenceburg. Yeah. So I look on these cameras and I see the cars actually driving through. Will there be any access for the public to actually pull these cameras up and actually see what's going on in real time?
Not in this program. No.
Okay. All right. So
It's not that kind of a program.
Right. So, that's what we're trying to
Agreed.
figure out.
But
on
it could
that.
be used that way if somebody wanted to.
Not really, because the cameras are lined up to aim at a license plate of a car. They're not going to.
So they're situated
even
in a way to,
specifically.
to video a passing car is what they are.
Right, to video the rear end of a car or truck to see the license plate. They're not anywhere aimed at the cab,
Okay.
right? They're just different. The highway ones, part of the whole thing is where does someone have a reasonable presumption of privacy, right? So if you're sitting in your living room, you have a reasonable assumption of privacy. If you're walking around the square with your wife holding her hand because you just got done out of a restaurant, do you have a expectation of privacy?
No, you're in a public location.
Maybe some, but not
Sure.
as much, right?
Sure.
I mean, you don't think of I'm going down a highway, so therefore all of my stuff should be out for the world. But if there's a camera up there and you drive under it,
Sure.
and someone wanted to see you in your car, I'm not a very pretty guy, so nobody wants to see me on a camera.
That's the
right?
reason me and Brandon are on radio.
So I'm going to ask this question, and I'll tell you why I'm going to ask this question. I have a history in one of the jobs I do, have done for years, has been accident investigation. So if there's an accident investigation, we could actually pull a camera, and we would actually go to the doors of houses and knock on the door and see if we could actually get Ring doorbell cameras. Most accidents, if it's in a neighborhood nowadays, I know Lawrence County, if you can't see the house from the road, it wouldn't apply. But most people in a urban type setting, they have a doorbell camera, they have a Ring camera, all kinds of different security cameras. We would go and pull that, and almost every accident, it may be the Taco Bell across the street, but I could pull a video and see the accident, even if there were no dash cams involved. So my question for you is, this camera is going to be going 24/7, and we get involved with accidents. There's an accident on the street. Would this information be able to be pulled and actually used in any type of because it's going to be used somewhere, okay? And I guess where I'm having a hard time with it is just believing it's only going to be used to find stolen vehicles. And so if you have an accident that takes place in an intersection, then would this information be something that would be pulled at any point in time to actually do an investigation on that?
Okay, so let's say we have a bad accident. It's a hit and run accident.
Okay.
Right? And so you're the accident investigator. You're going to go look in the cameras, and in the cameras, you see the license plate of the vehicle that did the hit and run. Then the police would use this tool to go search for that license plate and see where it next had a ping.
Right.
Okay.
So it could be used in
Okay.
that way in that kind of accident investigation. It wouldn't be nearly as useful as the type of cameras you're talking about and that are all over town at businesses, the security cameras.
Sure.
They're much more useful in accident investigation but if you're trying to find the car that hit that pedestrian and drove away, and you knew the license plate, then you could use this system
So
to
local
find out
police
where they
department
went.
could pull that information at that time.
They would go into the system and say, we're looking for this Tennessee license plate. And they would enter it into the system. And then when any one of the other cameras in the system got a hit on that license plate, then it would send back to Lawrenceburg and say, hey, we got your car. It's in Memphis.
See, the reason I want to know the company it is because there's a half a dozen or more of these companies that do this. But when you look at why these companies are advertising this type of technology to the cities or to the police, some of the things that they're saying is this, and it says this is what, and this technology is called LPR or ALPR. Am I correct?
License plate recognition.
Okay.
LPR.
Okay. And this is what it says. It says it's to detect pattern behavior. It's to search databases for suspect vehicles. It's to geofence notification. It's to identify convoys, recognize cohorts, vehicle presence alert, and many more data-driven search tools.
So when you look it up, it seems to be way more. It's almost a tracking device of monitoring, and so I'm gonna bring up a hot topic, but I still think it kind of falls in the same area. I can remember a couple of years ago. I won't say the word. We don't want to get kicked off of all of our sites today. We'll try to stay on. But I can remember a couple of years ago that it was mentioned that the state was actually tracking our cell phones.
Bill Lee did.
And Bill Lee had said, he said it on the news that, hey, you were tracking cell phones. We know that people are still assembling and they shouldn't be assembling. And so they're tracking all the cell phones. So what that causes for a lot of citizens, and for me, I'm not comfortable with the fact they want to get up and say that. I'm not foolish enough to believe they don't know where the cell phone's at. I'm sitting here with 2 cell phones in front of me and a laptop, and I've got all this equipment, and I know it's trackable. But I'm at that point. At some point, you got to look and say, where is the government really starting to get an overreach when they want to start tracking to see my pattern of my driving? And this is different because, and I'll tell you where I think this is different, Dick. I'm paying for these through private companies, and I do know it's being tracked, and I do know that if I were to turn up missing, they would go to Verizon or AT&T or one of the companies and say, hey, where did this phone last ping? And that makes sense to me if you could do that. I understand that. But when you start having a government entity that wants to start tracking the movement of its citizens, it sounds a little bit like China. And it sounds quite communist. It doesn't. That's just the kind of the way it. When you start saying, okay, we want to follow and we want to keep up with where Dick's going, and these data banks are capable of doing that. We're not talking about old computers that are the size of school buses anymore. They actually can do this, and they actually control this. I think the awareness of the citizens is, why does our government need this information? It doesn't seem to be a major crime solving tool. It's not helping the homeless population. It's not solving problems of traffic accidents. Yes, it may help with a hit and run. It may help on certain things. But the reason I brought up the fact you have the security cameras is usually you can pull that information anyways if it were to be needed. But this is a data bank that's going to actually start monitoring where we're traveling.
So if you're, I don't argue against the word you just said, either one of you, right? That's not the point. It is a crime investigation tool. So you both know that when you have homeless issues, it's largely a mental illness issue, or because they're tied together, and or illegal drugs issues.
Right.
So if we think we have a drug problem, a meth problem, and we think that our law enforcement, our CID people, the detectives, the narcotics teams, think that it's a connection from Florence, Alabama, and they can see a regular checking of, and they looking at the other cameras, they think, hey, they look at a license plate and say, yeah, we don't see that car around, and then they start using this system to track that car, then they can track down where the drug supply is coming from.
Okay.
It would be an investigative tool. That's all it is. Is technology out there a lot? Yeah. Are we being tracked a lot? Yeah. Do I trust everything that my national government is doing right now? No. Do I trust communist China? No. Do I think this is a good law enforcement tool? Yeah.
On this, when this came in, it was implemented by the state. What role did our city council, what role did they have of allowing this or disallowing? Did this come in over their head? Or was this approved through the city council, or how did this work?
They voted on according to the article.
Yeah, so they have to. So a city has to say, yeah, we're willing to work with you on this. We want to be part of using the information to help us solve crimes, and therefore we're willing to have some of these cameras on the state highway system in our town.
Okay. Well, we're cutting through a lot of the fat trying to get down to this, and I appreciate all the facts that you're bringing in, and you're being very transparent, and I do appreciate that very much. I don't know that this radio show is going to make people more comfortable with the fact. I don't think we're causing them to be more uncomfortable. I think there's awareness out there that this is actually happening. And of course, we're more of a political show, but elections have consequences. Elections matter. And, I just can see this down the road coming back to bite us as citizens. I remember during the course of the last few years, we've seen a lot of our freedoms come under attack. And when you see an overreach, and so I'm just going to say this the best way I know how, and it may not be politically correct, but I'm totally okay with that.
I'd rather be biblically correct.
So right now we do have a conservative majority in the state of Tennessee. We operate with a lot of freedoms in Tennessee, and that is absolutely under a threat. We're Republicans here. We're conservatives. I've not asked you to – I'm not trying to single you out on your political affiliation. I don't feel like that's what you're doing here tonight. But as conservatives, as people involved in elections, down the road 10 years from now, 15 years from now, we could see this turn to a blue state instead of a red state. We could see us become more of a liberal state. And at that point in time, I think that's where you see people that are like, right now in the current conditions, yeah, everything's fine, weather's fine, temperature's fine. But we could see this turn to be used as a tool against some of our freedoms, I believe, in the future. And here's why. Let's think about this. So let's say they come out and they want to restrict travel because we go into a time of war. They would use these cameras as an opportunity to find out who's moving throughout. And then people say, well, that wouldn't happen. Well, in World War II, they had a national speed limit at 30 miles per hour. But they didn't have cameras everywhere. Most people fell in behind it. They had, you had to buy things with stamps, and we were on different types of rationing. I could see these kinds of things happening in a time of, let me say, state of emergencies.
Right.
Because we've seen, I believe, in my opinion, state of emergency has been redefined in the last few years. Mm-hmm. I could see these cameras being used against our freedom during a quote-unquote state of emergency. And I think it's not that people would be upset, oh, our city council, our police department are working to solve crimes. Look, that's great. I mean, I am not a person that believes criminals should get off free. I believe in doing hard time. I'm just going to tell you, you steal, you go to prison. And I want to see that enforced, but I don't want to lay down my freedoms because there's an old saying, and I'm sure you've heard it because you seem like a well-educated man. Those who are willing to sacrifice their security, their freedom for security, deserve neither.
That's correct, Benjamin Franklin.
Yep. And so if we, at this point in time during good weather, if we sacrifice some of these things to where during a state of emergency, quote unquote, to where, and it was debatable, it's debatable sometimes on these state of emergencies, how much the state, how much the federal government can step in. I think that's where you see people's their feathers are kind of ruffled, especially with the environment that we're having. And then we ask a city administrator, where's this data bank at? And they don't know.
So I can find. I mean that I don't know that.
Sure.
Like, does it sit in Nashville or does it sit where?
Well, there's a company controlling it. It's not going to be the state of Tennessee controlling this information. There will be a subsidiary company. I've had a lot of government business.
I'll find
myself.
out and I'll get that information back to you for sure, so you can share.
I would appreciate that.
In reality, that okay. So this is everybody has opinions, right? So
I've noticed that.
And we're expert at ours.
And we're terrible.
We are the expert at our opinions.
It's a good thing. Everybody has opinions. I think the day that we're coming after you two for this radio show, and the state government has turned blue, and they decide we can't have people like you talking on the radio anymore, the license plate recognition camera is going to be the least of the ways they track you.
Well, Dick, we have been kicked off of social media for the past 7 days. So welcome to the future.
Yep.
What we're trying to tell you is we're here, and we didn't use a cuss word. We didn't threaten anyone's life.
Right.
We didn't do anything illegal.
Right.
We didn't. You can scan the radios, you can scan the dials, and hear filth and trash and people telling all kinds of saying all kinds of language, which we would never do.
Right.
And we don't do it when we're not here. We don't do it when we're in the radio. Where's who we are here, and having almost a back porch conversation. We're at that time. So I will tell you. And welcome to the future. And what I mean that is we're at the day and age where if they could start regulating this radio station, I'll ask you the question. Do you think they would do it?
I don't think Lawrenceburg would do it.
No, I'm talking about the government.
We don't need to. So
when is this going to be declared hate speech? When are we going to cross that? Because listen, left untouched, and people say, well, you're talking kind of radical. I'm just coming back on the radio this week because we were taken off. And like I said, we didn't threaten, we didn't cuss, we didn't break any of the regulations.
We just told the truth.
We didn't, and you know what? And everything we said could have been fact checked, and it could be, and they wouldn't fact check, but they shut us down. If they get to the point to where they could stop the airwaves on this big tower outside this building, I believe they would do it. If they could get to the point where they could control my travel, if they will start to control my speech, then they will control my travel. Mm-hmm. And we're facing that. So I'm saying, even though this seems, and it is intentional, to be an intended, 100% intended to be something that is good to protect the American public, the public of Lawrence County, and I love that intention. What we have to be careful as citizens is that good intentions are not overridden with dictatorship.
We've seen things in the last 3 years that no one could have ever imagined to see. Well, part of the conversation, what you just had, is who's they, right? So did someone in Lawrenceburg take you down from a social media network? Was it someone in the state
YouTube.
of Tennessee?
No, YouTube.
So it's a national thing, right?
Probably was in a national data bank, Dick.
We want you know. Okay.
You got it. I mean, you
see
can't. Well, here's the thing. People could say, well, you guys are talking because you're conspiracy theorists. I'm really not a conspiracy theorist if I'm telling you this is what I'm living. I'm just telling you where I'm at right now. And I'm telling you, here's what I'll say. On behalf of the public of Lawrenceburg that I've talked to, and Lawrence County, and I talked to a lot of people. I'm involved in several nonprofits. We had a huge meeting last night at the courthouse. I'm talking to people.
Yeah.
This is not an election winning. This is not something that the city council can win elections on. This is not something. This is a topic that can cost an elected official a race, and this is one of those topics because the people of America and the freedom-loving people of America have had enough. And we've had enough of government overreach. Look, I pay my taxes. I love good government, and I think government, and some people may disagree with me, but I think government is ordained of God. I'm a Christian first and foremost. The book of Genesis talks about laying out government. When Noah got off the ark, he laid out some rules right there, set up a government. And so I believe it's good. So I'm not an anti-government guy. Period. I believe in supporting the police department. I would like to see more police officers on the beat. I'm not against the fact of monitoring. I wish we could double the police force and double each one of them's pay. So I'm not against that. But what I am against is I'm against standing back and allowing our government to systematically, block by block, pull apart and pick at our freedoms to the point to where we're no longer free.
So I don't question that that's happening on the national level. I do question some that it's happening in Lawrenceburg or Lawrence County or the state of Tennessee. And you would say that this isn't a good election issue. I think providing law enforcement with tools is a good issue because right now we've seen in blue states, blue cities all over the nation where crime is rampant because they disarmed the tools for the police departments.
I agree.
This is a tool for law enforcement to put bad people behind the bars, right? That's what this is about.
And I love it as long as that's the only thing it's used for.
And I don't disagree with that, right? It's hard to talk about conspiracy theories when so many conspiracy theories are true.
Well,
right?
For me, this one's not even a conspiracy theory. They totally could start monitoring the fact if we had a state of emergency, no more assembly together. They start watching and they start pulling people. Listen, we're going through January 6th event, and I'm probably going to get us kicked off. Here we go. But there's still the FBI is contacting people that went to Washington, D.C.
They just arrested somebody 700 days ago.
So I'm just saying,
of a video.
I'm just saying this is how they're doing it with electronic tracking. And the people that went there, Dick, they didn't break one law.
So anybody that's not concerned about that issue isn't really paying attention. Right?
I agree.
The question is this...
This is exactly one of the tools
that can be used.
This is 100% one of the tools that was used to do that.
So then everybody has to decide then on supporting this is the value of it as a law enforcement tool to not end up like Blue City crime. Is that value more important than with cell phones and every other way they can track you?
Sure.
More important than the concern of yet another way that someone could track your license plate?
I understand what you're saying.
That's what the people have to decide. That's what voters have to decide. That's what city councils and others have to decide.
I agree.
But that's the balance, right? It isn't a light switch. It's a balance of.
It is, and it's a chemistry you have to put together, and I understand that, and it's always going to be that chemistry of
all of us in this we live in a land of freedom, but all of us are part of the the social compact, right, through the Constitution, where we agree that we're going to behave with each other. We agree that we're not going to steal from each other and kill each other and stuff like that. And therefore, you have agency, you have freedoms, but you don't have the freedom. We agree that you don't have the freedom to come kill me.
That's right.
Right. And so each of us agree to certain limitations. We agree that red lights and traffic signals are good. We agree that speed limits are largely good. Even the people like me who sometimes think of them as a guideline.
Sure.
But never in Etheridge.
No.
Slow down in Etheridge.
So, it's a judgment call. It's a decision of, what's the right amount of control? What's the right amount of police stuff? What's the right amount of traffic signs? What's the right amount of radar systems and all of that stuff? What's the right amount of balancing law enforcement against criminals with all of the other things that we're dealing with in society?
Absolutely.
And I 100% respect that you and your callers all have to make that choice.
Absolutely. And so, you know what, having you here it's been a good conversation. I appreciate it. I appreciate your professionalism you brought in with it. And we'll see where it goes from here. We may have some more questions about it, bring it up. We're not opposed to having town hall meetings and discuss it. I believe that's how we come to solutions.
That's right.
I'm not a guy, hey, burn the whole thing down. You know what I am? I'm a guy that says build the whole thing up. Let's build it. Let's create something. There's no mistake that we can make that we can't go back and we can fix it. But we all got to get involved. That's one of the things that we have to do. So we encourage community involvement, being involved here. I got to throw a plug out here again. Chris Stutz, Farm Service Solutions, doing a great job out there. If you need something for your property, Lawrence, you need to go see Chris Stutz.
Absolutely. You got me thinking again with, I got a pond that's overgrown right now with hydrilla, or what we call hydrilla in Florida, but the aquatic plants, that are underneath the water surface.
Right.
When you mentioned that Chris had things for your pond, that's something else I got to talk to Chris about.
And you know what? If he doesn't have it, if you go talk to him, he could probably find it. I'd say he's that kind of guy.
I bet you he has.
You and I were talking about the flail mower, the pull behind flail mower. I was telling someone about that. I don't know. I don't really even need one right now, but I just think I'd like to have one. Maybe he could bring one out to my house. We could demo.
He already talked about that. He talked to me about that the other day because the redneck in me wanted to put it behind my Suburban, put it behind my F-150. Instead of having to pay $100,000 for an air conditioning tractor, I can just put it on the back of my truck.
Pull behind flail mower, Dick. Yeah. That's what we're talking about. So you just crank the thing up, head out across the pasture, and let it do its
I
job.
like the idea of paying maybe $2,000 for something compared to $100,000 for something.
It seems like a cheap way to get a lot of work done.
And hey, I'm be comfortable, I'll be air conditioned, I'll be listening to radio or whatever.
So go see Chris. His phone number is 931-242-7675. Look them up on Facebook. They got a ton of videos. I was just looking at a few minutes ago. They got pictures. They got videos. If you need something for cattle, go talk to him. He's got it. They're at 41 Williams Road, Leoma, Tennessee. They're open 6 days a week. They only close on Sunday because that's the Lord's Day. And
that's right.
Go see Travis Caldwell if you're looking for real estate. United Country Real Estate actually found Sasquatch, and they named him Travis Caldwell. He was out there roaming around the woods looking for somebody's next piece of property.
He's from Polk County, Florida.
And he is from Polk County, Florida.
We were born in the same hospital even.
You're going to give me a headache.
I know.
So I don't know. That bothers me a little bit. Just the fact that Travis looks just like his dad, you look just like your dad, I can go with it, but otherwise I might say you guys might have been switched at birth. I don't know.
We think an awful lot, don't we?
You're a lot alike. I don't know. There may be some blood relation there, but right now Travis got a 1,000-acre farm in Wayne County with a 20-acre pond. I just want to go see it. I just want Travis to carry me out there so I can ride around one day. The miles of roads, there's farmland, woods, pasture. Sportsman's paradise. That's exactly what he told me. And when he was telling me, he didn't even have to say that. I was like, oh, that just sounds like I could go out there and just hang out.
Just disappear.
Just disappear for a few
Disappear and
days.
live, yeah.
So call Travis, 931-629-3033. That's 931-629-3033. That's a cell phone. He'll answer. You call him right now, he'll pick it up. Tell him you heard it on the radio. Tell him thank you for being a conservative. Thank you for being a godly man. He is a veteran. He served his country. He's been right here on the radio with us. Good friend of ours. It's good to have people in that you know them, you know their families, you know their kids. It's a great experience. What an honor to be a part of Lawrence County. Dick, thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
The City of Lawrenceburg Administrator, Mr. Dick McKinley, moved all the way from Washington State to be a part of this awesome community here. And there's a lot of people moving here because they love what they see. And if you're here and you're new, I encourage you, hey, come assimilate, be a part of what we are. And I've seen a lot of folks, Dick, that move into this area, and they do. They want to be involved. And I've seen a lot of community involvement from these folks. So the Republican Party meeting is the fourth Tuesday of each month. Thank you to everyone that came out. We're looking forward for an awesome run of the school board. It will be decided in the March primary, so get ready to vote. And a lot of times these votes, these primaries are settled by, I'm telling you, 4, 5, 10, 15 votes sometimes to
Yeah, if you don't think your vote matters, I mean, we had a couple of county commissioners that won by less than 20 votes this past time.
Yes, they did. So 10 votes either way would have been a game changer.
That's correct.
10 votes either way. So go out and be involved. You're going to see these folks out there. Go shake their hand. Tell them what you want. We actually last night, I think I surprised people. I handed the Republican Party platform for the National Republican Party. It's very conservative. Handed it out to all those candidates and told them, said, this is what we expect of you. And they received it very well. Lawrence, you got anything you want to wrap up with before we finish up?
Well, I want to wrap up with this. I know Kip Clay and Paige Wally are aware of what's going on with the water problems right now in our county, but I also want to point out this: it's not just Lawrence County that's experienced this. It was across the state. But I do know that our state legislators are aware of it. They're working hard to try to see what they can do to fix this problem.
Yep.
And that was very encouraging, to hear from them and what they're trying to do. And I will tell you this. We're only one generation away from having our freedoms taken away. And right. Ronald Reagan said that a generation ago.
That's right.
And I want people to really sit back and I want them to look at how we were in 1981 and how we are today and ask yourself, are we better off? And personally, I'm going to tell you no. I was 10 years old. When, matter of fact, I was 9 years old when Ronald Reagan got shot. I can still remember it today even. But I remember growing up, and what I've grown up in America is not the same America that my children have grown up in.
Well, let me ask this question. Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago since we've had a Democrat president for 4 years?
It's terrible.
We've seen some changes in 4 years.
We have.
Undeniable.
Undeniable. And if you're not,
W287
say
and W237 FD
say it's better or the same,
broadcast
you're not
services
being
of Prospects Communications.
Elections have consequences. Come out to the Republican Party. Join us. We want you to be a part
So
of
does
it.
cheating on elections. Did I say the quiet part out loud?
Hey, God bless Lawrence County. God bless all those people that get involved. God bless you, Dick, for being here. Appreciate you and your family moving to Lawrence County and being a part of us.
Thank you, Dick.
Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you for being here.
All right. That he has raised this